Good morning, Vamoose. Hey, listen, we've got a great show for you today, so I want you to buckle up and get ready because we're going to talk about some coffee today. All right, so last show I told you I'm going to do a couple more shows on coffee, look at it, the process a little bit, and maybe learn a couple things and, pull a couple lessons out of it. So here we go. So the main section I want to talk about today is the origins of a coffee bean. So coffee beans are grown all over the world in many different areas, but particularly, obviously in climates, at certain elevations, obviously it has to grow, at just kind of the right temperatures and the right temperate zones and whatever. And if you start to study where, coffee comes, you got Colombian coffee, you got Peruvian coffee, you got Honduran coffee, African coffee. Those plants are all a little different. The coffee beans grow all a little differently as far as, the soils, and once again, the temperate zones. And then there's, I'm sure, particulars beyond that, even that, each farmer practices. So I have a little bit of an example here. This coffee that I have is just, from a local grocery store. But one thing unique about this coffee is that this particular coffee is what they call single origin. So it's single origin. It's this, these coffee beans only come from this one place. It even has the, obviously has the country, Peru in this case. And even it has the exact place, the San Pueblo Estate, altitude 4,500 feet. Now this is, I can't say I'm this much of a coffee aficionado to tell you exactly what the elevation of 4,500 feet does. But I do know this coffee tastes really good, all right? I'm not going to get too nerdy on you. All I'm going to tell you is this. Every section, of the earth, almost every section of the earth where coffee is grown, a lot of it is grown in what's called the Ring of Fire. So, a lot of times where you find volcanoes, and at least old volcanic activity. And in those soils, there's a lot of carbon, obviously, burnt rock, ash, et cetera, et cetera. And it's interesting because it's hard to sometimes distinguish between the flavors of the coffees if you don't obviously drink them side by side. And then, we get into the brew process. Oh my goodness, there's another whole can of worms to open. But for now, just understanding that a coffee bean's flavor is determined by all these different factors. And the soil, what's interesting, if you try a coffee from, one of those countries in the Ring of Fire, typically has a little more earthy, maybe a little more nutty flavor. If you go to coffees that are done in like Northern Africa, whether it's outside of the Ring of Fire, I've tasted coffees from Northern Africa that almost taste fruity. So the soil is really rich and really nice, and it doesn't have that earthier flavor to it. So the coffees, once again, the coffee's flavor is determined by all these different factors, of course, and you add an elevation and in particular, plants, coffee plants themselves, and, it's endless. The cool thing is that you can have different flavors of coffee. Once again, some of you are going to be like, coffee's coffee, and you drink it, and you don't care, and whatever, and it's coffee. For some of us, get a little more particular in our tastes. And what I really want to pull out of this is that when you start looking at that and you realize that a flavor of coffee and a coffee bean can have so much, that affects it, well, that's just a coffee bean. Think about how complex the human psyche is, okay? From your physical, characteristics. Like I've seen identical twins, absolutely identical twins with almost two different, personalities. There's something inside of us that's different, no matter, even our DNA, but then adding our DNA and our conditions, physical conditions, where we were raised and whatever else. What I want to pull out of this is this. You have to make sure that in your character that you recognize in other people's character is that there is going to be a vast difference of flavor, personality, of culture, of worldview. people are going to think differently based upon where they're from and all the conditions they went through to get to where they were. Trust me, this coffee didn't just, pop out of nowhere. It's not, created in a vacuum. All the conditions aren't perfect. I'll guarantee you even this bag may differ from the exact same bag of the exact same coffee, even though it's single origin, it's the same place, same estate. Once again, some batches, the weather was slightly different. What I'm trying to point out to you is that so many times we want to just, categorize people or throw people in a certain box or even throw ourselves in a certain box. Well, look at my neighbor, or look at my brother or my sister, or look at my family, or look at, my community, kind of peers, people that are around me, people I grew up with, and look, they're not having trouble with this, or they're doing this, or look, they're able to do that, and we can make either excuses for ourselves or we can beat ourselves up unnecessarily based on, oh look, I think I'm pretty much like them, and I can't do what they can do, or I'm, whatever. And I know that we all have different personalities, but we also don't understand is that there's so much goes into making who we are. Don't look down on, don't miss even the little things, how they have an effect upon you. So in other words, what you want to do is you want to be more aware of the little things in your life, the little things that affect you. And sometimes it's an accumulation of little things that make big differences, big changes. And when it comes to coffee, it's really what it's all about. People think, oh, coffee bean. And then when you start making all these little changes of where it's at, where it comes from, and whether it's mixed or whether it's single origin or all this stuff, it makes a difference in the end. So, the good book says, don't despise the day of small things. In other words, don't overlook all the little things that have to play in your life, both good and bad. So don't dismiss a bunch of bad little things. Oh, I do that. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's going to add up after a while. At the same time, all the little good things. I do a bunch of little good things. Listen, I just had this person that passed away that I knew for a very short period of time, like 20 minutes. I met them out actually on a bike ride, and I may have mentioned them before at another show. I can't remember. Barely knew them for, like I said, 20 minutes. And they were such a kind, giving, open person. It was pretty impactful when I heard about the pass away. They're young, and that makes it even more impactful. But when I heard they passed away, it was obviously a shock, but also very saddening. Like, I didn't get more of an opportunity to spend time with the person because they were so positive and so nice and kind and friendly. And I think what happens to us is that we overlook even the little things they do. And once again, this person wasn't doing anything spectacular. When I went even to their memorial service, nobody said anything like, oh, they, fought for world peace and they were this and that, some great grandiose ideal. They might have wanted those things, but they did so by doing a bunch of small things right. Like the girls said, this person, every day I came into the coffee shop, this person was always nice to me, always showed me a nice attitude. Listen, don't overlook this little stuff. Once again, good and bad. It has a difference in something as simple as coffee. A bunch of little things done has this kind of end result, and in your character, it'll do the same thing. So do a bunch of little things right, eliminate a bunch of bad little things. You never know where you might go. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. It's been a little bit longer show, but I appreciate you hanging in there. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much. Now, Vamoose.